Somebody that will stand up for us in our fight to break this corporate corruption. He has the political motivation. If you see somebody, an elder statesman like him, going from state to state every day, that brings me encouragement, thinking I can do this. He's a great example for our younger generation. So I support him, and I encourage all of you to get out there and support Bernie Sanders.
Native Americans from day one is a national disgrace. The levels of poverty, the lack of health care, the lack of educational opportunity, that is not acceptable. And together we will change that. We will give our Native American people and 16. So issue number one that together we are going to have to address is to say that in America, the grotesque levels of income and wealth inequality are unacceptable. Unacceptable that the top 1/10 of 1%, 1/10 of 1% now owns almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%. That the 20 wealthiest people in this country now own more wealth than the bottom half of America, 150 million people. Everybody here knows that a super PAC. Thank you. Somebody said the other day, they stood up in the audience and they said, Bernie, we are your super PAC. And you are a super PAC, and I thank you for that. I'd rather have you on my side 1,000,000 times over than all the money in the world from Wall Street. Paying jobs, especially if they have a union behind them, they end up working in Walmart's or McDonald's for half the wages. Less than half the wages, with minimal benefits. That is not the future of this country that I want to see for our children and our grandchildren. We have got to rebuild our manufacturing sector, create decent paying jobs. Now, one of the reasons that people are working such long hours, and I'm sure many of you know this, that in America, we have millions of people working 50, 60, 70 hours a week. And the reason for that is that wages in this country are too damn low. Now, you can do the arithmetic as well as I can. I know here in Minnesota you've raised the minimum wage, and that's a good thing. But we have got to go beyond what Minnesota has done, and we have to understand that you can't make it on 10, 12 bucks an hour. You can do the arithmetic as well as I can. Just multiply $10 by 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year. In my view, and I'm going to fight and work with unions to make this happen. We've got to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. So that's not a radical idea. All that idea is that if you work 40 or 50 hours a week, you should not be living in poverty. Climate change is real. It is caused by human activity. It is already doing devastating problems, causing devastating problems in our country and all over the world. And what they tell us is if we do not get our act together, if we do not transform our energy system away from fossil fuel into energy efficiency and sustainable energy, the planet that we're going to be leaving our children and our grandchildren is a planet that will not be healthy or particularly habitable. We have a moral responsibility to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel. And by the way, when you make that transformation, we can create millions of decent paying jobs, building the solar panels we need, building them here in America, not in China. Yeah. Building the wind turbines we need here in the United States. When we talk about jobs, it's not just the millions of jobs we can create in sustainable energy. Everybody in this room knows that we have an infrastructure that is collapsing in many parts of this country. Bridges which are collapsing. That we have, in my own state of Vermont, many bridges are in disrepair, roads that need an enormous amount of work, water systems, wastewater plants, airports, rail. We used to have the best rail system in the world, no longer the case. Airports, levees, dams, you name it. I believe we should make $1 trillion investment in rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure, and when we do that, we're going to create 13 million decent paying jobs. And cuts the Social Security. That got me a little bit upset. I want to tell you another story. What our campaign is about is essentially telling the American people truth. And sometimes they're unpleasant truths. And here is the unpleasant truth. We have a corrupt campaign finance system dominated by big money. We have a rigged economy by which the middle class is shrinking, people on top are doing phenomenally well, and we have a broken criminal justice system. Let me tell you, tell you a story about what encompasses all three of those elements. A month ago, Goldman Sachs, which, as some of you know, is one of the large financial institutions in this country, reached a settlement with the United States government for $5 billion. $5 billion. Why did they reach a settlement with the United States government for $5 billion? The answer is, as were other banks, they were selling worthless packages of subprime mortgage loans, which was one of the reasons that our economy was destroyed 10 years ago. That's right, all right? So number one, so 4-part story. Part one, they pay a $5 billion fine for basically acknowledging that they are a fraudulent, crooked, dishonest organization selling garbage to the American people and investors and defrauding people. Point number one. That is, to a large degree, what Wall Street is about, fraud. Point number two. Point number two. Political power in America. All of you have one vote. Well, it turns out Goldman Sachs and the banks on Wall Street, those guys get one vote too, but they also get the opportunity to put many, many millions of dollars into campaign contributions and into speakers' fees. Point number two. Point number three, and that's political power. You're running for office and I make a lodge, put millions of dollars into your campaign. Now I know there's never been a politician in history who has ever said, oh no, these contributions will not impact me at all. I have no idea why they're making these contributions, will never impact me. No politician in history has ever claimed to be impacted by the zillions of dollars that came in. But that's what happens. Point number three is called the revolving door. You know what a revolving door is in Washington? You have people who work at high levels on Wall Street, like CEOs at Goldman Sachs, pretty powerful people. They leave Wall Street and they go to work for the United States government. In the last 25 years, Goldman Sachs alone has had 2 secretaries of the Treasury. So you go from Goldman Sachs, you're Secretary of Treasury, you work for Wall Street in government, and then you go back to Wall Street. That's called political power. Okay, so you're representing Wall Street right in the highest levels of government. Point number 4, and maybe it is the point that upsets and angers the American people the most. Now, we have a criminal justice system today which is failing. It's failing in terms of so many of our people, young people, in jail. But it is also failing in how we dispense justice in America. Today, a kid in Minnesota, kid in Vermont, gets picked up for possession of marijuana. That kid will have a police record which will stay with him or her for the rest of their lives. And you know, that's not a joke. Because you go out, get a job, and your employer says, well, tell me about yourself, you've been arrested. Well, yeah, 3 years ago I was arrested for possession of marijuana. Well, okay, we got somebody else who might be interested in the job. Serious business. So you got kids, and you got over a 30-year period, millions of people, by the way, who have criminal records as a result of possession of marijuana, which is a whole other story. But that's one reality, and you got another reality. If you are an executive on Wall Street, and if your greed and recklessness and illegal behavior resulted in the destruction of a large part of our economy, millions of people losing their jobs, their homes, and their life savings, so many lives, older people, just really ravaged. If you are that executive, do you know if you get a police record or not? And the answer is, you do not get a police record. You get a salary and compensation increase. Yeah. And that is called a broken criminal justice system. What all of us grew up believing is if you're rich and if you're poor, if you break the law, under our system of government, you are treated equally. Equal justice under the law. That's a profound statement. Profound statement. All of us treated equally under the law. That is not the case today. If you are wealthy and powerful, and you're on Wall Street, and you destroy the American economy, you're not going to get a police record. If you're a poor kid picked up with marijuana, you will. Together, we are going to restore justice to a broken criminal justice.